The United States has been rocked by the terrible sentencing narrative of American Pickers star Mike Wolfe. Many people were astonished and filled with questions when pictures of him being carried away in handcuffs surfaced. Could disagreements over antiques or issues with the History Channel be linked to this arrest? However, the incident's true nature is far more nuanced and terrifying than anybody could have predicted. Let's explore this story's little-known elements. If you were taken aback by this tale, please remember to subscribe to get future updates, like the video to help the channel, and share it with your friends. There are still a lot of unexpected turns in Mike Wolfe's narrative. Viewers across were taken aback by Mike Wolfe's punishment, which saw the American Pickers star detained and taken away. According to the most recent sources, many first think the arrest was related to a quarrel about antiques or even a commercial issue with the History Channel, but much more horrible is the reality about the arrest. Wolfe was taken into custody in relation to the passing of Frank Fritz, his former co-host. Investigators have now classed Fritz's death as a deliberate murder after first assuming it was the result of natural causes. According to medical assessments, Fritz had been overdosed because of the unusually high amount of narcotics in his system. Wolfe was charged with murder by the prosecution, who claimed that Fritz, who had entire faith in Wolfe, was drugged on purpose rather than by mistake. While others, including many fans, think the tension between the two was just a ploy to draw in more viewers, some have even called the incident a crime. Wolfe might be arrested and held responsible for his behavior as a result of these severe accusations. The murder, according to the prosecution, was a violent act of retaliation motivated by envy and avarice. But when the initial accusations were temporarily lowered, the case took an unexpected turn. More evidence has been acquired by investigators, further complicating the issue. Wolfe was first taken to Fritz's home after his death by a member of the American Pickers crew, according to a social media post. After taking over, the Iowa State Police carried out a comprehensive investigation and found important evidence, such as odd text messages sent to Fritz and Wolfe's fingerprints on a pill bottle. The original murder accusations were made as a result of this evidence. When the medical examiner discovered discrepancies in the toxicology results, the inquiry into Frank Fritz's death got underway. Although stroke problems were first listed as the official cause of death, the autopsy revealed another reason. Suspicion was aroused right away by Fritz's prescription medicine levels, which were startlingly high and considerably over the recommended amount for his condition. Interestingly, Fritz was thought to have taken his medications exactly as prescribed during his recuperation, which led detectives to wonder who may have tampered with this. The people who had been around Fritz in his last hours were the target of a covert investigation that the Iowa State Police began. Their results stunned Fritz's longtime friends as well as the investigators. A startling revelation was discovered in Fritz's neighborhood surveillance film. Late at night, almost 3 hours before emergency personnel were notified, Wolfe's vehicle was spotted near Fritz's residence. Wolfe was the one who called 911, saying that Fritz was not responding when he arrived at the house to see how his old buddy was doing. Fritz was pronounced dead at the site when paramedics failed to discover a pulse despite their best attempts to revive him. The toxicology results showed something completely different from the first assertions that Fritz's death was connected to his prior stroke. It became evident that Frank Fritz's death was not a natural one, and Mike Wolfe's role is still up for debate. As investigators concentrated on Mike Wolfe's conduct in the immediate aftermath of Frank Fritz's death, the tale took a darker turn. Rather than lingering in grief, Wolfe acted swiftly to seize Fritz's collection and intellectual property. In order to get the rights to Fritz's name and likeness for use in upcoming American Pickers items, Wolfe spoke with Fritz's attorney within 48 hours after Fritz's death. Production employees said that Wolfe also acted quickly to gain access to Fritz's storage areas, which included priceless antiques that had never been shown on the program before. According to several crew members, Wolfe was particularly preoccupied with business things right after Fritz's death, and did not exhibit the obvious indications of mourning that one might anticipate. Detectives searched Wolfe's house and workplace, and found a safe filled with unlabeled medication bottles. Upon closer inspection, it was discovered that Fritz's system had the identical kind of drugs, but the most startling finding was a notebook that was discovered in Wolfe's vacation bag. In it, he wrote extensively about his mounting animosity for Fritz. Wolf wrote in the journal that he was angry and hated Fritz. The tone of several postings, which were from several years ago, grew more antagonistic over time. Notably, one post made a few weeks before to Fritz's passing stated, "Fifth believes he can return and reclaim half the spotlight. He doesn't remember that there wouldn't be a performance without me. The network is showing me that there is only one way to preserve what I have created, and he has turned into a burden." These remarks demonstrated Wolf's intense hostility for his former co-worker and pal. He seemed very composed during the 6-week trial, sitting quietly next to his lawyers, while the prosecution produced proof suggesting he had orchestrated Fritz's murder. Wolf had investigated undetectable poisons and ways to make Fritz's death seem like a stroke complication, according to information shown to the jury. Wolf's search history on the internet includes questions like whether medication interactions from strokes may be identified after death. Additionally, how to make a stroke complication appear to be the cause of someone's death. According to the prosecution, Wolf killed Fritz by taking advantage of his prior health problems, which he saw as the ideal chance to get rid of his partner and seize control of the program. In the years preceding Fritz's resignation from the program and eventual death, former members of the American Pickers team attested to the troubling shifts in Wolf and Fritz's relationship. According to a production assistant's testimony, she overheard the two having a heated debate about the show's future course, with Wolf insisting on complete creative authority. She remembered Wolf informing Fritz that because of his health issues, he was no longer entitled to equal pay. According to many witnesses, Wolf grew more domineering, often disparaged Fritz in front of network officials, and cut Fritz off from his long-standing acquaintances in the antiques world. Danielle Colby, who reluctantly consented to testify, gave what was arguably the most moving testimony. She remembered that when she asked Wolf about making amends with Fritz, he became defensive and irate, urging her to quit interfering in things that didn't affect her. Colby also related how he discovered troubling notes about Fritz's prescription routine at Wolf's office, and when she asked Wolf about it, he said he was only worried about Fritz's condition. The defense team said that Wolf had made a sincere effort to make amends with Fritz before, to his passing, in an effort to frame the matter as a misinterpreted relationship. Network officials were called in to testify regarding public declarations that aided Fritz's recuperation. But when Fritz's personal physician testified, this hypothesis was swiftly refuted. Fritz was worried about his health, but he was hopeful that he would recover, the doctor verified. He even intended to launch his own antiques company. Additionally, the doctor said that during Fritz's therapy, he had never given him such large dosages of drugs. When Wolf was asked directly if he had given Fritz the medication, his carefully preserved calm started to crumble. Fritz's death became more puzzling and suspicious as the facts and witnesses gradually put together a fuller picture of the conflict and complicated connection between Wolf and Fritz. The mood got heated during the trial as the prosecution proceeded to testify and provide evidence of Wolf's financial motivations. You don't understand what it's like to develop something from nothing and watch someone else take credit, smiling for the cameras while everyone believes I was just as crucial to the success of the program, Wolf said at the prosecutor in a sudden outburst. Wolf's defensive squad tried to defuse the situation by calling a recess after this outburst, but it was too late. According to the jury's subsequent report, this particular instance proved crucial to their decision-making process, because it exposed the intense animosity Wolf had been carrying around for years after Fritz quit the program. Forensic accountants provided testimony throughout the trial on questionable modifications to Wolf's company structure in the months preceding Fritz's passing, to guarantee ownership over Fritz's intellectual property in the case of his incapacitation or death. Wolf had covertly reorganized his businesses. Interestingly, Wolf had bought Fritz a business insurance coverage, which resulted in a $5 million settlement for Fritz's own firm. Additionally, prosecutors disclosed that Wolf had created other shell corporations that Fritz was not aware of and moved priceless artifacts worth more than $2 million into them. The jury barely took 4 hours to find Wolf guilty after considering all the evidence. Things rapidly got out of hand after the court gave him a life sentence without the chance of release. Suddenly, Wolf, who was standing in the middle of the courtroom, sprang up and said, "You don't understand, he was going to destroy everything, he was going to destroy my legacy." Across the defensive table, he charged. Hurrying at him, the bailiffs knocked over papers and water cups. Wolf, however, didn't stop there. Before Fritz's family could stop him, he ran toward them, thrashing his arms furiously. The situation became much more chaotic when Wolf escaped once more as fear swept across the courtroom. This time, he took hold of a neck brace, a piece of introduced evidence, and used it as a weapon, piercing one of the bailiff's shoulders. As 3 other policemen fought to hold him back, Wolf said, "I built American forklifts, that was my life's work." Despite falling to the ground, he kept up his ferocious battle. He was yelling and stomping about what he thought was treachery. As things got out of hand, and Wolf kept causing chaos, the judge was compelled to leave the courtroom. While Fritz's sister was present at the sentencing, and had to be removed out by security, when Wolf attempted to charge at her, officers fought to contain him. "I deserve this," Wolf cried in a tumultuous and emotional moment. Wolf became agitated as he was shackled and ready to be brought away. He yelled in exasperation, "It was my show," which heightened the already hostile environment in the courtroom. Everyone was taken aback, however, when Wolf exclaimed, "Tell them the truth, tell them what Frank was really like." As he looked at Danielle Colby, who was seated in the gallery, Colby turned aside, pain evident on her face. The sudden separation caused other members of the production team to lose control of their emotions and start weeping. Originally believed to be a close-knit family, the events in the courtroom caused a great deal of division within the American Pickers family. While some remained in favor of Wolf, others took the side of the prosecution. A startling fact was also disclosed in court filings. In the years before Fritz's death, Wolf had covertly filmed team members betraying him. Wolf continued to lash out as security tried to rein in his actions, exposing more shocking revelations. Wolf shouted that he was going to launch his own program. He said that the network wanted him back, and that I was out of date. At least 3 individuals were hurt during the startling courtroom incident, including Wolf's defense lawyer, who was hit by a flying water bottle. Wolf continued to yell about the treachery he felt he had endured the entire time, even as he was being pulled from the room, saying Fritz had plotted to destroy him. Following the courtroom event, Wolf's personality was discussed by his former co-workers and acquaintances. Thomas Reynolds, a former producer of American Pickers, recounted moments when Wolf lost his temper behind the scenes. Reynolds claimed that although he maintained the ideal rustic image in front of the camera, he could be intimidating off-camera, particularly with lower-level employees. Others said Wolf was growing more suspicious, thinking Fritz was covertly preparing to make a comeback on television with a rival program. According to legal experts examining the case, Wolf could have had narcissistic personality disorder, which would account for the sharp discrepancy between his private and public actions. The case rocked the world of reality TV, particularly American Pickers, a program that had millions of viewers worldwide. In addition to expressing shock and sadness for Fritz's family, the History Channel stopped all of their Wolf-related programming. Additionally, a number of significant sponsors withdrew their support from American Pickers, casting doubt on the show's future. Fritz's relatives sued to take over his intellectual property and antiques collection, pledging to uphold Fritz's legacy and taking the network to court for permitting Wolf's more unpredictable actions. After years of public scrutiny, mental health professionals who studied the case hypothesized that Wolf could have acquired a more severe type of narcissistic personality disorder. Forensic psychologist Dr. Robert Keller clarified that although this does not justify his behavior, it does assist to understand the discrepancy between his private and public lives. Narcissistic personalities might come out as calm and endearing, while planning retaliation and feeling deep anger. The case's most worrisome element was Wolf's manipulation of public opinion through his television platform. Following Fritz's death, Wolf wept on social media and blamed his stroke-related difficulties for Fritz's demise. In order to divert public attention and save his own legacy, he simultaneously took use of the occasion to reveal his future intentions. Prosecutor Sarah Donovan stressed after Wolf was convicted that this was a deliberate act of deceit against millions of spectators, not merely a murder. Before learning that Wolf, the guy who killed his ex-partner, was taking advantage of their sorrow to further his own financial gain, these individuals had trusted, grieved, and sympathized with him. Soon after Fritz's death, investigators discovered that more than $1 million had been contributed, most of which had been transferred into accounts that were only accessible by Wolf. Wolf's erstwhile followers and viewers faced a hard reality when the life sentence was announced. The popular perception of him as an ardent antique collector vanished entirely, to be replaced by the sobering reality of a violent and murderous man. Longtime watcher Robert Jenkins said, "We feel betrayed not only by Wolf's actions, but by the years of deception we welcomed into our homes every week." The harsh reality now faced those who had relied on Wolf's grounded appeal and love of preservation. All of it was a front for sinister and unsettling activity. In addition to shocking the general public, the incident caused a severe division among the American Pickers group. While some crew members supported the prosecution, others thought Wolf was innocent. One of the prosecution's witnesses, Danielle Colby, took a leave of absence from television, stating that she needed time to recover and think. She hoped that the tradition of preserving antiques would live on in a succinct statement. In spite of the terrible situation, as they deal with the agony of losing Fritz and seeing Wolf found guilty of murder, other crew members have stayed out of the spotlight. The judge's seemingly prescient words preceded Wolf's outburst of anger. "Now, Mr. Wolf, although you hold ideas of murder and revenge, you portray yourself as a defender of history and the preservation of America. You've planned the demise of the guy who laid the basis for today, while using your position to lecture about the importance of the past. Justice is done for the millions of viewers who trusted you, as well as for Frank Fritz." A violent outburst that would be Wolf's last public appearance before he was taken away to spend the rest of his life in prison began when he rushed across the table. Remember to press like to help the channel, subscribe to keep up with the next twists, and share the video with your friends if you thought this tale was startling. We'll keep providing you with the most exciting and unexpected facts since the narrative isn't over yet. The public is still being shaken by Wolf's case, but the reality TV industry has also been shaken by another surprising incident. The program Pawn Stars star Richard Kevin Harrison, also known as Richard Harrison, was rumored to have received a life sentence. Richard Harrison, a TV personality and businessman renowned for his extensive knowledge and direct approach to work, unexpectedly found himself in significant legal difficulties. Inside Richard's well-known pawn shop in Las Vegas, Pawn Stars has shown viewers daily dramas and difficult discussions. However, his promising television career has just taken an unexpected and sinister turn. Why is Richard Harrison receiving such a severe punishment, and what actually happened to him? People are confused and inquisitive about this case, and Pawn Stars viewers will undoubtedly reconsider all they believed they knew after reading the case's contents concerning the adored character. Born in Lexington, North Carolina, on March 22, 1965, Richard Kevin Harrison spent the most of his youth in San Diego, California, after moving there with his family when he was just 2 years old. Due to his early struggles with epilepsy, Richard spent a lot of time reading, researching historical personalities, and investigating stories. He would eventually enter the television industry as a result of later events in his life, where he established a solid name in reality TV and the pawn industry. However, the tale of Richard Harrison is currently taking a horrifying and surprising turn. The creator of the well-known gold and silver pawn business, Richard Harrison, has had an incredible life and career. Even though Richard struggled with epilepsy and other obstacles as a youngster, he never gave up on his goal of becoming a teacher. Richard's illness forced him to miss a lot of school, and he eventually left in the midst of his second year. His will to learn was unabated by the educational setback, though. Richard studied widely on a variety of topics, including business and history, with an emphasis on self-education. Richard's self-developed business and historical knowledge gave him a solid basis for his future profession. Richard started collaborating with his father on business endeavors while he was a teenager. He gained a sharp eye for identifying and assessing costly objects, which would come in very handy during his subsequent work in pawn shops. Richard married Kim, his girlfriend, after she fell pregnant when he was 17. After 8 years of marriage, the couple eventually got divorced, although they did produce 2 kids, Corey and Adam. Richard's father, Richard Benjamin Harrison, sometimes referred to as the Old Man, started the gold and silver coin store in Las Vegas, Nevada, when the family relocated there in 1981. This was when the renowned gold and silver pawn store first opened. The Harrison family's astute move from a coin store to a pawn shop in its early years was based on their realization that the pawn industry offered more profitability. Richard and his father had to put in a lot of overtime to establish their name in Las Vegas during the early years of the pawn industry. They had to deal with picky clients and occasionally hazardous circumstances. Richard, however, improved his negotiating abilities as a result of these encounters. Richard was well known in Las Vegas by the early 2000s for his knowledge of historical relics and antiquities. Both locals and visitors were drawn to the Harrison family's pawn business because it sold valuable and distinctive goods. Rick started thinking about taking the pawn store to the screen after realizing how entertaining it might be. Pawn Stars eventually debuted in 2009 after several denials and tenacious attempts. The television program featured the antiques and priceless items that Richard and his family valued and purchased, as well as the day-to-day activities at Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. Richard went from being a small pawn shop owner to a nationally renowned TV personality as a result of the show's enormous popularity. As Rick bargained with clients to sell their priceless goods, his catchphrases, "The best I can do is," in particular, became famous. Richard's educational contribution to Pawn Stars was one of its most notable elements. The negotiations weren't the only topic of each show. It also revealed information on the value and background of the goods that were brought into the store. Viewers were better able to comprehend the object's historical context because to Richard's frequent sharing of his in-depth knowledge of them. A sizable audience was drawn in by this strategy, making Pawn Stars one of the History Channel's most popular programs. Under Richard's direction, the Gold and Silver Pawn Store grew in size and drew tourists from across the globe who were excited about the possibility of meeting the show's celebrities or possibly making an appearance in an episode. In addition to making Richard famous, Pawn Stars' popularity provided him with chances to advance in his career. He started a restaurant, published books, and made appearances on various television shows. Richard's work and personal life reached new heights as a result of his newfound prominence. Richard Harrison rose to prominence in the reality TV business as a result of Pawn Stars' popularity. In addition to appearing on talk shows, he was a popular speaker at conferences and gatherings. In addition to being a TV personality and pawn shop owner, Richard's career spanned a number of other industries, demonstrating his business savvy and capacity to establish a strong personal brand. The path taken by Richard Harrison is evidence of tenacity and an unwavering quest for knowledge. He persevered in his objectives and eventually attained extraordinary success in spite of the many obstacles he faced in life. In addition to making Richard famous, Pawn Stars is a tale of tenacity that transforms setbacks into chances for achievement. Richard was notable for his keen business sense and capacity to see the worth in things that others may pass up. He was able to demonstrate these traits on Pawn Stars, where he assessed anything from rare valuables to vintage automobiles and historical items. Richard's store was extremely successful because of his ability to appraise and negotiate unique products. His $1,600 purchase of a Super Bowl ring from the New England Patriots, which was later appraised at a significantly higher amount, was one of the most noteworthy transactions on the program. Rick started additional businesses in addition to operating the pawn store. His varied business approach was demonstrated when he established a bar and Rick's Rollin' Smoke BBQ adjacent to the pawn store. Licensed to Pawn, Deals, Steals, and My Life at the Gold and Silver, a book he co-authored, offers insights into his business philosophy and personal life. Richard was constantly searching for new methods to expand his brand, and kept growing his business empire. Richard had his share of difficulties in his personal life, despite becoming well known and successful in business. Following the dissolution of his first marriage, Richard wed Tracy Harrison, with whom he lived contentedly for 27 years until their 2011 divorce. His co-star Danny Coker from Counting Cars officiated his 2013 marriage to Deanna Burdick. Despite being well known, Rick kept his family life secret, only releasing tidbits about the program. Viewers could see from these glances that in spite of the strains of job and popularity, Richard was a loving family guy. For Richard though, things did not go as planned. When FBI detectives, IRS investigators, and Cultural Heritage Protection Agency personnel raided his house and business in 2023 as part of a protracted investigation, he was in big trouble. Many people were astonished by the raid, and Rick's supporters and close friends were taken by surprise. Computers, papers, and other materials were taken from the store by investigators, while a few patrons and staff members were placed under temporary arrest. Richard maintained his composure and caution while becoming entangled in the probe. As his neighbors used their mobile phones to capture the incident, the scene swiftly became viral on social media. These kinds of circumstances are not ideal for any star, but they demonstrated Richard's fortitude and poise during a stressful time. In 2018, Rick stated his profound appreciation for his father, Richard Benjamin Harrison, also referred to as the Old Man, and his resolve to go on operating the family business in accordance with the values his father had set. As demonstrated by their long-standing working connection in the gold and silver pawn store, this was evidence of the close friendship and mutual respect between father and son. In addition to being a tale of commercial success, Richard Harrison's career was a journey full of ups and downs, and challenging but worthwhile decisions. Richard Harrison's career, family, and several business endeavors have all contributed to his reputation as a respected person among fans, entrepreneurs, and people in the entertainment world. In particular, officials think Richard Harrison was part of a complicated scheme in which he sold historical items through private channels for significantly higher true prices, while undervaluing them to lower taxes. He also allegedly bought goods from unlawful sources, including important historical records and artifacts from private collections and institutions, according to the indictment. A former employee, who exposed these transactions and revealed that Richard had a separate accounting system to conceal them from the public, was a major contributing factor in this. Richard's aides first denied any misconduct, saying the probe was a miscommunication that will be resolved shortly. But as the inquiry went on, alarming evidence emerged, such as financial records, encrypted texts, and statements from former workers who said Richard had given them instructions to falsify records and information in order to hide unlawful activities. Messages that Richard had with an unnamed source about how to clean the provenance of a document that was allegedly taken from a university archive were among the evidence. Suspicions regarding the legitimacy of Richard's company operations were heightened when he was additionally charged with manipulating transactions to evade disclosing significant cash transfers. Richard insisted on his innocence during the court case, saying he was singled out due to his political beliefs and achievements. Many of his followers supported him by planning demonstrations and demanding justice using hashtags like #FreeRichard, which reflected the polarization of the public on the issue. Richard maintained his reputation as a moral businessman and persisted in making appearances on talk shows to support his stance in the face of grave accusations. The gold and silver pawn store stayed operational, but after the inquiry, its earnings significantly decreased as many consumers avoided it because of the legal taint. Since the History Channel halted production of the show during this time, the protracted court struggle created a difficult environment for both Richard and the Pawn Stars. Richard showed his tenacity by continuing to confront the situation head-on in spite of the criticism and difficulties he faced over his career, but this case also exposed a side of him that was not as well known. A Richard Harrison, who may have a more cunning and practical side than the public has previously realized despite his seemingly moral exterior. In situations like this, it is important to remember that everyone deserves compassion and equitable treatment during trying times, and Richard's devoted supporters have continued to provide unwavering support. Richard's public image and the future of his company, however, will continue to be impacted by the new information and continuing legal disputes. Richard Harrison's friends and family were very supportive of his trial. Richard's longtime buddy Chumley attended every day but left the courtroom soon because he couldn't control his emotions, while his son Corey sat behind him in court looking very hurt and distraught. Many were taken aback by the conviction, and legal experts contended that the penalty was out of proportion to the financial offenses Richard was being charged with. The judge did stress, however, that Richard's involvement in the trafficking of stolen objects had caused irreversible damage to cultural property, in addition to reflecting financial crimes. Richard had established a reputation as a guardian of culture and history, yet his activities were perceived as enabling the exploitation and destruction of valuable cultural items for private benefit. This highlighted the harm done to historical heritage and resulted in a severe and concerning sentencing. Richard's legal team immediately appealed the sentence, claiming it was too severe and unjust for a non-violent offense. Additionally, they asked that Richard be released on bond until the appeal, but this request was turned down. When Richard was handcuffed, the tension increased even further, and the media and social media sites took notice of the picture of him being escorted away. The remark sparked a heated response from Richard's fan base. Cultural heritage specialists hailed the decision as a deterrence against the trafficking of stolen items, while other doubters questioned if there had been a miscarriage of justice. In an effort to assist Richard get a new trial, the Hearts for Harrison movement was launched. Participants argued that the sentence should be re-examined since it was excessively harsh in comparison to other instances of a similar kind. Following the controversy, the History Channel, which had made Pawn Stars a reality TV hit, swiftly cut ties with Richard Harrison. All repeats of Pawn Stars were taken off the channel's broadcast schedule, and the show was formally discontinued. The channel reiterated its dedication to conserving historical items and cultural heritage in an official statement, expressing profound sadness in Richard's conduct. It is indisputable that Richard Harrison had a significant influence on the pawn industry and reality TV, despite his severe legal troubles. He effectively established a corporate empire through Pawn Stars, transforming the family pawn store into a well-known brand worldwide, before everything started to fall apart. It is impossible to dispute his impact on the reality TV sector, or the way his program altered public perceptions of history and antiques. Even though Richard's career is currently experiencing many obstacles, his influence on television culture and business is still quite strong. From creating a pawn industry empire to his unavoidable demise due to bad choices and legal infractions, Richard Harrison's life is a really turbulent one. In addition to altering his personal life, receiving a severe sentence had a significant effect on his family and company. But despite these obstacles, the Harrison family's tenacity, particularly that of his son Corey, has allowed them to stay strong and keep coming up with new ideas to bring the company back to life. Despite being a well-liked tourist attraction in Las Vegas, the gold and silver pawn store has seen a sharp drop in patronage after Richard's conviction. Corey Harrison has nonetheless worked to enhance and modernize the store's reputation. He has placed a strong emphasis on openness in all dealings and pledged to collaborate with educational institutions and museums to advance moral collecting methods. Corey also mentioned that although admitting that previous errors are unacceptable, the company has put new processes in place to confirm the origin of every item brought in. The family is dedicated to contributing to the resolution of these problems. Richard's longtime buddy Chumley, who plays a crucial role in Pawn Stars, has struggled with her inner demons. In an interview, he said that though Richard taught him a lot about managing a business, he had to acknowledge that Richard had darker elements to his personality and behavior that he was either unaware of or didn't want to confront. This illustrates how complicated Chumley and Richard's relationship is, as well as how each Harrison family member handles the challenging elements of their personal and professional life. The Pawn Stars fan base is still very supportive of the Harrison family. According to Corey, the family is really appreciative of the supportive comments they have gotten from people all around the world, and these tiny acts of kindness have really given Richard the strength he has needed during his darkest moments. Maintaining the spirit and togetherness among the Harrison family has been a key component of activities like monthly prayer circles outside the pawn store and inviting fans to contribute letters and pictures of special moments from the program. Richard Harrison, a popular reality TV personality and prosperous businessman, is now dealing with his worst times as a convicted felon. In addition to shocking his family, this metamorphosis serves as a warning to other wealthy people and celebrities. Cultural analysts have likened Richard's demise to tragedies in Shakespeare's plays, in which a man with a wealth of knowledge and insight in history kills himself via wrongdoing. Richard's tale has come to symbolize the brittleness of celebrity and the perils of conflating astute economic tactics with actions that may result in criminal activity. The tale of Richard Harrison serves as a lesson on the perils of success and the sometimes hazy distinction between lawful and illegal commercial operations. Richard may have been a clever and innovative businessman who expanded his company, but his bad decisions and unlawful activity finally brought him to ruin. This serves as a warning on the value of upholding morals and values in one's life and at work, regardless of one's level of success. The Harrison family doesn't lose up even though Richard is facing his sentence and the most difficult times of his life. Richard's son Corey Harrison is currently in charge of the family company and is working to maintain the gold and silver pawn shop's significance in the Las Vegas community. The shop's operations have undergone substantial improvements, with a commitment to transparent transactions and ethical collection techniques. Even though the pawn shop no longer attracts the same level of customers, the family's efforts to keep it open and repair its image demonstrate that they are not just accepting the reality, but also making every attempt to improve their future. Pawn Stars viewers have shown a great deal of support, which contrasts with the challenges the Harrison family is facing. Social media support groups have been set up, urging people to send Richard encouraging comments, cards, and letters. Additionally, the Harrison family set up a website where admirers may mail Richard. All of these encouraging notes will be sent to Richard while he is incarcerated. The family is using this effort to express their gratitude to their devoted followers for their steadfast support during this difficult time. In his darkest moments, Richard has found strength and hope in the community's warm remarks. The Harrison family revealed that Richard has been greatly inspired by the fan community's support during these difficulties. Never before has Richard shown such gratitude to the Pawn Stars audience. In their statement, the family said, "It means so much to him to know that you are still by his side." In addition to helping Richard stay strong, the supportive remarks, upbeat ideas, and prayers from his supporters also stand as a tribute to the strength of love and devotion. Richard's narrative is still developing, with many more intricate events to come, despite his legal issues and unthinkable life upheavals. His path from pawn shop owner to successful businessman to convicted felon will always serve as a potent lesson about the transience of celebrity, the perils of prosperity, and how poor choices can ruin a career. The Harrison family is fighting to keep their empire going, while Richard is still facing life in jail. They hope that one day they will be able to repair their reputation and build a brighter future for the next generation. They will surely be greatly inspired to overcome this challenging period by the affection and support of the fan base. If Richard's tale got you thinking, please remember to subscribe so you don't miss any future updates. Like this video to help the channel, and share it with your friends. There is still a lot to discover. I'll see you in the upcoming video.